Welcome to Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. Recently, the Chancellor of the University of California, Riverside, announced he is retiring at the end of this school year. Today, he joins us to share his experiences, his hopes for the region, fears, and even the UCR secret sauce.
People ask about our secret sauce. And our secret sauce, we've boiled down to 3 words: culture, people, and programs, in that order.
That's coming up shortly on Education Insight. But first, a look at what folks are talking about in education this week. A team of California Baptist University students has earned second place in an international competition. The students designed a prototype for an artificial heart and competed in the Heart Hackathon. The event took place in November in Utsunomiya, Japan, according to a university news release. The Riverside-based team was the only U.S. group among 9 international competitors. Last year, they placed 3rd when the competition was held in Dallas. The students, all undergraduates in biomedical engineering, take a design course that teaches them to create an artificial heart prototype. Using 3D printing, they build a pump capable of simulating human heart flow rates. The work began in December of 2022, and they had a prototype within 2 months, according to the campus news. The device uses rollers to squeeze fluid through a tube, mimicking the heart's motion. The Heart Hackathon connects students with researchers and high-level professionals, encouraging innovation in artificial heart technology. A number of experts nationwide are looking at new problems associated with kids being extraordinarily sedentary. According to Angela Hanscom, an occupational therapist and founder of Timbernook, they're finding that the consequences are more serious than parents or teachers may be thinking. She says the average child now spends about 9 hours a day sitting, whether it's in the car on the way to school, in chairs during class, or at home doing homework. Even extracurricular sports like baseball or softball often involve structured, upright positions. Experts insist that at school and at home, kids need to spin in circles. They need to hang upside down. Hanscom explains that inside their inner ears are tiny hair cells that are stimulated when fluid moves during rapid motion. The process helps develop the vestibular sensory system of the brain, and that is responsible for balance and brain organization. Those therapists are encouraging schools to promote spinning and other movements that build body awareness. Basically, a lot less sitting on the playground and a lot more monkey bars. Chancellor Kim Wilcox of UC Riverside says he will be retiring at the end of this school year in June. His retirement marks the end of a 12-year tenure, the second longest in UCR's history. During his leadership, UCR faculty size increased by 30%, and student enrollment grew by 24%. Research funding more than doubled, and 2.4 million square feet of new facilities were added. Now, these include buildings for the School of Public Policy, the School of Medicine, and a new business facility. UCR earned national recognition for social mobility and serving underrepresented and low-income students for 5 straight years. The University of California Board of Regents and its president, Michael V. Drake, will lead the upcoming search for Wilcox's successor. Student and community input is expected to play a vital role in selecting that new leader. And Chancellor Kim Wilcox joins us by phone on Education Insight today. Thanks for taking our call, Dr. Wilcox.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Before we get started, when is retirement expected to happen, Chancellor?
Should be next June.
And what would you say has been your most gratifying accomplishment at UCR?
Oh, there's a bunch, but over the last, it'll be 12 years when I retire, 12 years at Riverside. Over that period of time, we've really moved the university's prominence ahead. we're by some measures now, national measures, a top 25, top 35 university in the country, public university. And that's growth in our research programs, really growth and excellence across the board, our graduation rates for students and success of our alumni and so forth. So it's growth in effectiveness, but more importantly, as importantly rather, the recognition of that excellence and what it means for the university, what it means for the whole region.
Was this the career you dreamed of when you were young? I mean, what were you dreaming about becoming when you were very young?
Well, when I was little, like so many people, I was going to be a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
In college, I was studying physics, and I as a physics major, and I wasn't really enjoying that too much. And I took a course from someone who was a terrible teacher. And I remember thinking, I could do better than him at this. And I decided I might be a professor.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent most of my years, college and graduate school, thinking I was going to be a professor and have a small group of students work with me in the lab and be very happy. And I think I would have been very happy. But they needed a fill-in department chair at one point, and I got kind of pressured into doing it. And I found I really liked the administrative side of the university a lot. So, no, I never thought I'd be a chancellor.
Yeah. Where were you teaching at?
At that time, I was at the first the University of Missouri, then the University of Kansas.
Was there an especially difficult project during your years in Riverside as the chancellor that was just a beast? Something that you thought, I am never going to accomplish this?
I never really thought there was something I would never accomplish. We certainly have had our set of challenges. We remember it'll be 5 years since the pandemic began in a few weeks. So we had our set of challenges. I never really thought we couldn't do it. That's one of the beauties of a university. There's so much talent and so much energy on a campus that there's few things we can't do. There's always goals we don't achieve. There's lots of things I wish we had gotten done that we haven't quite gotten done. But there was never something that I felt we just weren't going to manage, and we muscled through everything.
If you just joined us, you're listening to Education Insight. Our guest is Chancellor Kim Wilcox of the University of California, Riverside. Chancellor, what will you miss the most in retirement?
It sounds trite, but it really is the people. And that's true with many people. When they retire, they're going to miss their colleagues. But at a university like this, we have freshmen who are really just out of high school. And the world is their oyster. They can find whatever they want in their future. And we have some of the world's experts on most any topic you can make. We have Nobel laureates on our campus. We have people who have spent their whole life in Riverside and people who have just moved to Riverside for the first time in their 50 years. There's such a diversity of people and experiences and talents and skills and opportunities that it's going to be hard not to be faced with that every day, just to walk across campus and talk with students and walk across campus, talk to staff members. And that's going to be hard. And not just here. I was at a meeting in D.C. a couple of weeks ago, and I was with some people that I've worked with for 30 years on national issues. And in retirement, I won't have those opportunities. Some of them I may never see again, in fact. So that's going to be hard. And it already, Diane, are saying goodbye to people, or not really saying goodbye, but kind of having last meetings with people as a way to make sure that we keep track of people after we retire.
Yeah. You mentioned your wife. Is she looking forward to this retirement?
Yes. She'll listen to the broadcast, so I can say this. She actually enjoyed COVID because I was home all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I travel a lot and I'm gone a lot, but I was in the house, as we all know, 24/7 for those couple of years, and she enjoyed it. And it was kind of a beginning prelude to retirement for us.
There are so many things, Dr. Wilcox, in the inland region of Southern California when it comes to education, so many things that are in flux right now. Is there anything you worry about when it comes to education in the coming years in our region?
Yes. There's been a lot of national conversation. I think some of it's a little overdone about how many people don't see the value in higher education that they once did. Setting that discussion aside, I don't see that here in our region. I see an awful lot of families who are eager for their children to get as much education as possible so they can make a better way in the world. And I think that's exactly the right path. I worry, though, that, number one, we're not doing the best job of helping those students get ready for a college future. And that's why the work that we've had, I've had the great privilege of working with colleagues in the K-12 system, private sector, and growing inland achievement, the GIA, which is a great organization to help students prepare. But I also worry about the availability of seats. UCR and Cal State San Bernardino are the two public universities in this region, and we don't have the capacity that I wish we had. So we're working hard to grow, and I know Tomas at Cal State is doing the same thing to make sure we have the room for all those students and all their aspirations.
At the beginning of our program today, we mentioned some of the accomplishments that you've had while working at the University of California, Riverside, in projects both for the university and for the region. But may I ask, what has UCR done for you? And how has that university changed you?
I have always been impressed by the humility of my colleagues in the region and my colleagues at UCR. Like I said, we're one of the best universities in the country, but we're not braggadocious. We recognize our excellence, but we use the excellence to a particular end. And even among our students, we have hardworking students who some have actually thanked me on the street for the opportunity to even be here and study. That's just the humility is overwhelming. And again, it's part of the Inland Empire, I think. And I've also learned to better appreciate partnerships. Like I said, we were grateful to be part of the GIA, the local regional partnership. We've been a founding member of several national partnerships on education and equity. And watching the power of those kinds of partnerships to get things done and change local and national agendas has also been a lesson that I've learned and I'll take with me.
Coming up, we'll have more of our conversation with Chancellor Kim Wilcox of the University of California, Riverside. This is Education Insight. Welcome back to Education Insight. Our guest today is UC Riverside Chancellor Kim Wilcox, and we're talking about his time as a professor, 12 years as the Chancellor of the university, and his upcoming retirement at the end of the school year. Dr. Wilcox, I know that you've traveled a lot around the region. You've had such an impact on education far beyond our area. I'm wondering, when you're out working with other chancellors, university presidents from elsewhere in California and around the nation, are there things that you've seen that caused you to say to yourself, wow, the Inland Empire is really ahead of these guys?
There's actually lots of things. We're recently called upon to help others achieve what we've achieved. We're one of the few places in America that has the academic excellence that we have and the breadth of inclusion, particularly of students. We have students of all stripes and backgrounds, economically and ethnically, and they succeed at a rate that few others do. So people ask about our secret sauce. And our secret sauce, we've boiled down to 3 words: culture, people, and programs, in that order. You have to develop a culture that values both excellence and access at the same time in an equal measure. And I was fortunate to have a campus that largely had that culture when I arrived here in 2013. And once you have that kind of culture, it starts to attract people who embrace the culture. So we have faculty members who come here because they know about us and they know about our values and they know about our commitment to each other and to the region. And once you have the culture and the people and more people, then you can do programming to help everybody be more effective. Too often, universities and other organizations start a program to fix a problem when the problem needs a different kind of base, needs a more secure base in culture and shared commitment to a direction. And that's really what UCR has. And so I talked to other universities about how they work on the culture, how they build that sense of joint commitment to a goal and a set of values. And then the rest of it becomes much, much easier.
A little earlier, you mentioned your days teaching. What would you say has been your favorite moment working with students from those days when you were a teacher, a professor, all the way up to as an administrator and indeed chancellor?
Tough question. I'm looking at my windowsill here. I have a picture of my lab group from about 1995. At an end-of-year picnic where we were doing we split up in teams and had a competition, Olympic competition. There's lots of it. But I think the thing that I treasure the most are mentoring students while they're students and then after they're students. I've really kept in touch with a lot of my students and colleagues for that matter too, and helped them along their career life. And that's been very, very rewarding to watch them grow and feel like I had some role to play in advising them.
What accomplishments are you anxious to see coming from UCR in the next decade and beyond?
There are two big directions that continue to be, I think, high priority for our university. They've been my high priority for several years, and I hope the next chancellor will see them as well. One is the economic development for the region. We are the only research university in the Inland Empire. If you look around the country, the places that have really succeeded, Austin, Texas, Research Triangle, Cambridge, Massachusetts, all those centers of excellence were anchored by a research university. We're that anchor. And so we have a responsibility to help grow and energize the economy here in the IE. We've done a lot. I could get on that long list, but there's still a lot to do. We still have a per capita GDP that trails most of the nation. We have to help the region and the citizens of the region be better. And the other big long-term direction, I think most of your listeners know that UCR opened a medical school a little over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And it was designed to be one that would train medical students, but also would be targeted at helping improve the healthcare here in the IE. The medical school per se has done very well, and we've had great partners in our clinical side, but we found that we need a little more stability in our clinical operations. So we're working hard now to find a more secure clinical base for our medical school. We don't have a hospital. We don't have a medical center. We have to find some strategy to build a clinical operation that will not just help our medical school, but also help the region more fully than we have in the past. So those are two big directions that I hope we can see more progress in the next decade.
As the man who's been behind the wheel at UCR as chancellor for some 12 years now, could you tell us what it takes to be a great chancellor?
Well, I've been chancellor for 12 years. I haven't been a great one, so I'm not sure you're asking the right chancellor. I have a few kind of rules of thumb about looking at talent. And one of the first things I always say when I'm interviewing a candidate for any job is I want someone who's a good listener. Someone who talks too much doesn't impress me generally because number one, they're not learning while they're talking. They're just talking. And number two, they're too often about themselves. I think a great chancellor is somebody who listens. This campus with 35,000 people on it and all the things that are going on, there's no way one person can know it all. And you're kidding yourself if you do. So you have to rely on others to help you understand all of it and how it changes day to day. And also someone who's a listener is also back to humility, is a little more humble. It's more about the university than about themselves. And I think that's the important piece. You have to be someone who's making the university better for that purpose and not for self-aggrandizement or visibility on your own part. So that's a key piece for me. I have no doubt that the next chancellor will be a talented individual and will have lots of academic experiences and the rest. And I hope that they also have that bit of humility, but also are willing to understand the IE and understand UCR and continue on the path, which I think is a pretty good path for us.
You mentioned that next chancellor. I'm wondering, what advice will you give to that individual when they take your position?
Again, I'd probably suggest that they learn a little bit about UCR and its history. It's still a rapidly evolving school, but it's evolving based on a long trajectory and a long set of closely held values. And I think we'll continue to grow and evolve in who knows what ways. I can only imagine. But if we stay true to that longer term trajectory of excellence and inclusion and service to the community, I think we'll be just fine.
Dr. Wilcox, our last question is perhaps the most important question of the day.
I better think.
You better. When President Obama left Washington, He went windsurfing.
Ha!
President George Bush began painting portraits of people. And Snoop Dogg started coaching kids soccer after his somewhat retirement. What are you looking forward to doing in retirement?
Well, my first thing is I'm looking forward to not setting an alarm clock.
Uh-huh.
It's just going to be delightful. I don't know exactly. I've been busy, kind of like, no doubt, like President Obama. I used to do a lot of home repair. I did we renovated 2 houses. One was a historic National Registry house that I did most of the work myself. So I'd like to get back to some of that if I could. But right now, I live in the Chancellor's residence. So when I retire, I don't have a house to repair. I got to buy a house that I can repair.
Yeah. There won't be any windsurfing, though, will there?
No windsurfing, I'm afraid not. And I don't know much about soccer. I played football and basketball in high school. I maybe could do that. But, I had a painting lesson in China a few weeks ago.
Mm.
It's a lesson from a teacher who does lessons for senior citizens. And I actually painted a picture that wasn't too bad. So maybe, maybe I could get George Bush.
There you go. On the telephone, Chancellor Kim Wilcox of the University of California, Riverside, reflecting on his impressive career and his upcoming retirement. Dr. Wilcox, thank you so much for speaking with us today and so many other times in the past here on Education Insight. We wish you well, friend.
It's always been a pleasure, Lacey. Thanks so much.
After last year's federal student aid applicants suffered unprecedented technical issues that blocked many students from applying, a new application system seems to be rolling out pretty smoothly. On the next Education Insight, we'll discuss the big changes and how finding money for college is different and hopefully easier. In the meantime, we leave you with music from UCLA student and Grand Terrace resident Megan Bermudez. Megan began her music training in Riverside at the age of 6 and performed this piece at Grand Terrace High School not too long ago. Franz Liszt's Liebestraum. Join us again next week for another edition of Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. Have a great week.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor.
And our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
And Lacey Kendall is your host.
Support is provided by College Futures Foundation.
Some technical assistance provided by the College of Arts and Letters at Cal State San Bernardino.
Growing Inland Achievement. Working together for inland education and economic success.
Join us again next week for Education Insight.